What we'll be doing now is cutting the various pieces of Dacron needed to complete the wing. The first pattern we're going to be cutting is a 2" by 3" pattern. You'll be taking your hot knife and just cutting through the material. You will need 2 of these patterns. The reason for using a hot knife is it helps seal the edges of the material after it's been cut. We found it best to use the straight edge of a table to help facilitate cutting. Next we'll be cutting 2 1" by 3" patterns. The next pattern we'll be cutting is a 20½ by 2¼ pattern. You will notice that the pattern does not go completely through the material. Once you get off the pattern, try and keep the cut line as straight as possible. You'll need to cut 2 of these. Once you have the material cut, place both the pattern and the Dacron up against a straight edge, as shown here, and cut off the 3/4 inches of material remaining. Try to keep pressure on the template near where you're cutting. Put these 3/4 inch pieces aside for a minute. We'll be coming back and cutting more pieces out of those later on. Now with the 3/4 inch pieces, we're going to start out by cutting our largest 3/4 inch pattern, which is 8 inches by 3/4 inch. We'll do this by placing this on top of the pattern and cutting through. We'll need 2 of these patterns. The next pattern we'll be cutting is 4 3/8 by 3/4 inch. We'll need 4 of these patterns. Take your last remaining 3/4 inch pattern. This is the pattern that has a slight angled edge on one side. And we'll need 2 of these. Next we'll be cutting the 20" by 1½ pattern. As before, the template does not go all the way through the 3 inches of material, but we will be cutting straight through. Try and keep your cut line as straight as possible. Once we have this cut, we're going to align both the Dacron and the template up to the edge of the table and cut off directly through the material. This cut should be directly in the center, and you will end up with 2 1½ by 20" pieces. If you have any stray strands at this point, take your hot knife and cut through them, cut off the excess. Next we will be cutting our 10" by 1½ inch pattern that has a slightly or has an angled cut on one end. We're going to cut straight through the 3 inches of material as shown before. Try and keep the cut line as straight as possible. Take your template and the Dacron again aligned against an edge and cut the remaining edges of the template out. With the remainder of the material you have, again line it up as shown here in the video and cut off the angled portion, which will leave you with a triangle piece of scrap.